Did you know there are some trade jobs out there that can earn you well over $100,000 a year? And it doesn't even require a four-year college degree? Well, today I want to tell you about three trade jobs that I have personal experience with myself that I used to work in before I became an entrepreneur. And I want to tell you about them here today. Many trade type jobs are often overlooked when they offer great pay, great incentives, and a lot of opportunity. Trade jobs. So many young people today overlook the trades as being a viable career path. But the reality is that trade jobs can be incredibly lucrative and offer not only financial security, but also financial independence. By exploring these three hidden gems I'm going to talk to you about today, and no, I'm not going to tell you how to be an electrician, you can unlock a world of opportunities that may have never even occurred to you before. The opportunities are truly endless. One of the biggest misconceptions about trade jobs is that they're somehow low paying or less prestigious than other career paths. But you see, that simply isn't true. Many trade jobs offer specialized skills that you learn while working the job. And there's also continuing education training, and as a result, these trade jobs can command very high salaries. The real beauty of trade jobs is that you can be paid very well to be trained how to do the job that you're training to do without having to pay some university an exorbitant amount of money to possibly learn a skill set that may land you a job or a career in the future. And here's another misconception, that trade jobs are somehow inferior to like white collar style jobs. But the truth is, trade jobs offer a level of job satisfaction that you just don't find in other career paths. Plus, many trades are in high demand, which means that you can command top pay, you can work for whatever contractor that you may choose to work for, and you can also target particular projects that may be coming up that you want to be a part of. No other career path really offers this level of opportunity. And then there's the myth that trade jobs are somehow limited to career advancement. But again, you see, that's just not true. With experience on the job that you're getting paid to do, mind you, and also maybe some continuing education that you pursue outside of your job, you can very quickly move into supervisory, leadership, and management roles. You may even be inspired to start your own business. The sky's the limit. Many trade jobs are in such high demand that they're creating opportunities almost every day. For example, as concerns about climate change continues to escalate, that wind turbines, solar panels, well, they're going to need more of that stuff to be not only manufactured, but also installed. And with the rise of e-commerce, well, the need for tradespeople is higher than it's ever been. E-commerce needs warehouses, office spaces, distribution centers. All that stuff has to be built. And guess what? None of that's ever going to stop. It's only going to become more in demand. So let's take a look at the three hidden gems that can really pay the big bucks. The first one I want to mention is what's called a safety coordinator. Being a safety coordinator, especially in construction, is a huge thing because it helps offset injuries and accidents, thereby lowering contractors' insurance risk and their premiums. It just so happens that this career path requires no formal education, only on-the-job training, and maybe doing some continuing education or getting some certification with OSHA so that you are very well versed with what's required from OSHA to keep people safe and to help keep accidents down. A good safety coordinator, well, they demand well over $100,000 a year in salary, and also are incentivized by bonuses and other perks that companies often give these guys because that position is highly needed. So what is a safety coordinator anyways? A safety coordinator is somebody who coordinates safety. Well, what they really do is that they do site audits. They go around the job site looking for safety things that are happening between the subcontractors and employees, maybe some safety violations, little things that a lot of subcontractors just don't like to follow sometimes because it's kind of a pain in the butt. There's a lot of little things that go on in the field that the safety coordinator needs to make sure is not happening. Safety coordinators also perform job site discussions, so toolbox talk. So basically every morning or at least once a week, the team comes together in the morning and they talk about a safety topic amongst everybody. And what that does is it helps everybody that's listening to be more aware of safety in general and let them know that the contractor they're working for cares and they want to ensure that everybody is following the safety protocols outlined by OSHA. So to keep everybody safe on site, the safety coordinator's role in doing the toolbox talks, the safety audits, coming up with safety plans of action, and making sure that the site in general is doing things safely is so important. Everybody working on that job site, well, they want to go home to their wife, loved ones, or whatever every night. And the safety coordinator is a big part of making sure that happens. Personally, I think the best way to become a safety coordinator is to look for opportunities where other contractors are looking for a safety coordinator. And even though you may not have any experience in the field yet or very little, you can still reach out to them and show your interest in the position that's available. They may still want to bring you on, even though you may not have a lot of experience, only because safety coordinators are hard to find. So that if somebody has an interest in it, there's a good chance that a company, if they see value in you, that they want to train you and get you up to speed to fill that role. And of course, another way to land yourself in this kind of position is to get on with a GC as just a general worker or a carpenter's helper. Just work for the direct general contractor who manages job sites. And once you are in that position and you've proven yourself a little bit, you can express the interest of becoming a safety coordinator to the construction management team, and it is very likely that they will help you get into that role. Of course, going ahead and getting your OSHA certifications before you even pursue this career path would be a good call. It's very cheap to do. Getting an OSHA 10-hour course or an OSHA 30-hour certification, they're not very expensive. I want to say they're $89 or something like that. It may be a little higher, a little lower, but you can certainly sign up. There is a training that you read and go through, and then you take a test. Very simple to do. It's just a little bit of a nuisance. It's not very fun to do, but understanding what is safe on job sites is paramount. And that's why OSHA has these certifications out there so that people like you can learn about it. But I will say, I think the true best way to become a safety coordinator is to work as an assistant for another safety coordinator who's been doing it for years. This way you can learn all the ins and outs, the little tricks and tips that nobody can really teach you. You just have to experience. So becoming an assistant to a safety coordinator, which I've seen that many times, especially on large construction projects, that is the best way to get the experience and education that you need. So that brings me to career path number 2. Construction field engineer. Now, construction field engineers are in very high demand. Those guys are just hard to find, especially ones that are good at it. And with that, those guys are paid extremely well over $100,000 a year, along with other company incentives like company trucks, fuel cards, bonuses, things like that. Now, personally, I have a lot of experience in this department because I worked as a field engineer for many, many years. So what is a construction field engineer? A construction field engineer is somebody who works similar to what like a land surveyor does. They use very similar equipment, if not the same, that a land surveyor would use to locate and provide control lines and all the layout of the job site itself so the trades can be effective in doing their job and getting started. Because the reality is, if a construction company tries to use a land surveyor to provide these services, they'll never be able to respond fast enough. And a lot of times land surveyors, they have a larger margin of error than when they do land surveying. And in construction, you can't do that. You can't have any margin of error really. So you have to be very precise about what you do and be able to do it quickly. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's say you're staking out curb and gutter or grades, elevation slopes for the backfill, things like that on a job site. Well, those stakes and things like that get moved and broken all the time. The guys don't know what the cut or the fill is or where to locate the curb because the layout itself is no longer there. Or it got moved, it got bumped. I don't know, something happened to it. So the field engineer is there to make sure that those guys always have what they need. And it's not only for like the site work. This goes into the actual layout of all the footings, the foundations, the anchor bolts, columns, elevations for height. All that kind of stuff comes into play of what the engineer handles. So what does it take to be a construction field engineer? There is no true education per se. This is all learned in the field. Now, with that said, I have worked with young guys fresh out of college that were trying to become a project engineer or an estimator or a project manager, where there's a 4-year degree that is possible to obtain to get into the construction management side of things. And some of those guys would come work with me and my team as a construction field engineer to understand the ins and outs of what it's like in the field in a fast-paced environment. And some of those guys like it so much they choose to stay in that path. So you will find sometimes that some field engineers may have a bachelor's degree, but it's not because they had to have it to be a field engineer. It's just because they got it for a different reason and they wound up pursuing a different path. So since there's no formal education to become a construction field engineer, the best way is to work with another field engineer to learn what they do, become their assistant. Now, this may be referred to as a rod man. And what a rod man is basically somebody who holds the rod for the engineer to look at, to shoot elevations, or to get them online when they're using a theodolite or something like that. But working with another field engineer is the best way to become a construction field engineer. Now, this position requires you to understand building drawings in great detail. So learning how to understand blueprints, looking through the details, how to read cuts and things like that on plans, that's number one with this position, because you've really got to understand where things go and how to locate them. Now, there are certain techniques that are used as a field engineer to do that. And the best way to learn them is working with somebody else who's already doing it. Now, I will say, because this position is very niche, you will find guys that do things very differently. So like if there's an older gentleman who's been doing this for the past 40 years, he may have means and methods how to do his job effectively that somebody else who may be newer that does things differently and more modernized. So just know that. And in today's day and age, I would highly recommend working with somebody who is more hip on some of the more modern techniques to locate things. Nowadays, they use a lot of GPS locate. And back in my day, GPS locating was available, but it was had a lot of room for error. Things could be off by a tenth or an inch and a half, 2 inches, and that would be acceptable in the GPS realm. Nowadays, I'm pretty sure they have it down to where GPS is very exact, where things are within a 1/4 inch or so, which is more than acceptable for construction. So working with other field engineers that have a diverse background, maybe they've been doing it forever, and also working maybe with another engineer who does things more with a more modern approach, would only help you become one of the best field engineers available, because you've learned both different ways of doing things. And once you become known as a good construction field engineer, oh man, you're in high demand. So many companies will reach out to you. Headhunters will reach out to you to try to recruit you to go to work for other contractors on upcoming large-scale projects. And I know this from experience. That means that your pay can be very high, because other companies are going to pay you more competitively to get you to come on board with their team. Now, the drawbacks to being a construction field engineer, I will say, is that you are very important on the job site. You and the crane operator that is in that tower crane or the whatever type of crane you have on site is probably the two most important guys on a job site. If one of those guys do not show up for work that day, there's a good chance that the whole job site may have to just stop. And that may sound great talking about it, but in reality, it's not. When I worked in that position, I didn't have a lot of vacation time. I would only take off a few days at a time, because that's all I could really allow to be away from the job site, to allow me to take a few days off a year to take my children on vacation somewhere. Now, I was highly compensated and well sought out from other companies because I became known as a very good high-rise specific style construction field engineer, which is a very fast-paced environment. So if you decide to pursue this career path, know that that position is not to be taken lightly. You have to be very accurate in your work, very prompt in your work, and always be available to keep that job site and schedule moving forward. Now, there are some things that you can do before even becoming a field engineer assistant, like reading books, understanding land surveying, understanding azimuths and bearings, and knowing how to read tents for cuts and fills, and understanding elevations. There's some basic books out there that you can read that can help you with this, so where you're a little bit more knowledgeable about what an engineer encounters on a day-to-day to be able to do their job. Or just like becoming a safety coordinator, you can get on with a GC and work as just a general construction laborer, carpenter, something like that, Figure out who's doing the layout, who is the construction field engineer, and express interest to work with them, that you want to help them. If they have the need for your availability, or if their helper quits or doesn't come to work and they know that you're interested, they may just call on you to help them. And it may be something simple just to get started with those guys, but it will help you fall into that path, because that's exactly what happened to me. I went to work as a construction helper on a job site, a large federal government project, and they didn't need no other position except somebody to work with the field engineer as a field engineer's assistant. And that's how I got started in that field. As I said, construction field engineer is a very niche position. A lot of folks don't even know it even exists. It's in such high demand, but there's so few people that do the job, and ones that can do it well, especially in fast-paced, large multi-family style or multi-level style construction. If you can work your way up to that, which you can do very quickly, I'm talking within a couple of years, you can possibly do this. You can make a lot of money and become a construction management professional without any college degree, without any payments to some college to learn a degree. Do it all in the field and make well over 6 figures doing it. Now that leads me into my third recommendation I have for you guys, which is an assistant construction superintendent. Now, you may think that me telling you to be an assistant sounds like low pay. Well, let me tell you, it does not. I know many assistant superintendents that were making 6 figures plus because they were very good at their job. Plus, the best way to become a superintendent is to become an assistant superintendent first. Superintendents, they can make very large amounts of money, okay? I personally know people who were a construction superintendent for many years, and some of those guys, they developed a name for themselves as being somebody who can handle large-scale projects, bring them in way under budget, far exceed the schedule that was anticipated, and make the company a lot of money. And those guys are making $200,000 a year, easy, if not more, especially when you incentivize them with the large bonuses that they can receive from the GCs for doing such a great job of bringing projects in way under budget and way ahead of the schedule. It's not an easy task, which is why I recommend becoming an assistant superintendent first, so you can learn the ins and outs of how to operate a job. So what is a superintendent or an assistant superintendent anyways? A superintendent is somebody who manages construction projects. And I don't necessarily mean just like paperwork and hours and stuff like that. What I mean is they manage the schedule that is set forth, and sometimes they even help create job schedules. So that way they meet a production quota to bring a project in at a certain date in the future. So it can be hard to forecast what that's going to take. And a lot of large-scale projects, they'll bring in an actual construction scheduler to help with this process. So all the subcontractors and the superintendent and the project managers of the GC are all on the same page of what the timeline is going to be to finish this job. So the superintendent's role is to make sure that not only do we stick to the schedule and bring it in on time, they're also trying to bring it in much sooner, because a lot of times there are large incentivized bonuses when you bring a project in way ahead of schedule and preferably under budget. And a good superintendent, well, they know how to do just that. And it may sound simple talking about it here, but it's not. Managing other trades and teams and other management members of the GC that work for you directly can be challenging, but with any great challenge comes great reward. Becoming a superintendent, it doesn't require any formal education. I don't think I've ever met a construction superintendent that went to college for anything. Every one of them that I've ever worked with, they just kind of found themselves in that position with time. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to wait many years to become a superintendent. I've actually met guys that were just carpenters one year, and the next year they're a superintendent of a small project. And that can happen for many reasons that are beyond your control, or some of the reasons can be within your control. So becoming a superintendent is really a matter of working in construction, understanding the process, applying yourself every day. It's no different than any other business or any other job that's available out there in the world, okay? But in trades especially, because people that are good at trades are very hard to find. So applying yourself, coming to work every day, showing initiative, showing up clean every day. Those types of things can really help you graduate up the ranks, so to speak, But I think the best way to become a construction superintendent is to become a construction assistant superintendent. Now, there is a lot of job positions that I've seen online where people are always looking for an assistant superintendent. So it's not going to be hard to find. Now, it may be hard to land a position like that without any experience at all in construction, because you're going to need to understand it. So the first thing to do, if you're not working in construction already, is to get a job working for a GC as a laborer, carpenter's helper, whatever. Just get on site and understand what construction is. Read the plans. Show an initiative that you want to understand the ins and outs of how the construction workflow happens to the management team. Talk with that superintendent on your job site. Let him know that you're interested in helping him in any way that you can. And you'll be surprised. He'll start calling on you for things. It may be something simple like coming in early one morning to let a trade in, or coming in on a Saturday to let in a subcontractor who's behind on schedule. Things like that. It may not be the most prestigious thing to do in the beginning, but it's going to get you in the door to becoming on your way to becoming a superintendent. But once you have experience working in construction, you certainly can take that experience that you have and have some kind of a resume built up showing that you do have experience and apply to some of these smaller GCs that are looking for assistant superintendents to work with the on-site superintendent. Those guys are in high demand because any good superintendent, they want a good assistant superintendent, because the assistant is going to make their life much easier. That is really the best way to become an assistant superintendent, is to go get experience in construction first, or if you already have some, skip that step and go ahead and apply to getting a position as an assistant superintendent off the bat. And those guys, like I said, good assistants make upwards of $100,000+ a year, plus bonuses, along with all the company incentives that a lot of the regular superintendent may receive as well. But once you successfully complete a project or two, you certainly can take your knowledge and now become a construction superintendent on another project yourself, either for the same company or moving forward to another company who needs your services. And again, just like I mentioned with the engineering and the safety coordinator, these things can happen quickly. You can get a job as a carpenter's helper one day and then work on that job for 6 months and find yourself as becoming like the assistant superintendent, working for him directly, and as far as what needs to happen on the job site. And then within a year, you're actually working as the title of an assistant superintendent, or even possibly as the construction superintendent. That experience can only be taught in the field on the job. There's really no school. There's nothing that can really prepare you to be a good superintendent. You just have to work in the field, understand how things flow, and understand the job, and know how to manage people. So as I mentioned, these 3 gems that I just told you about, it's not how to be an electrician that you hear all the time from other YouTubers, which being an electrician, yeah, it's a great career path, but it's pretty heavily saturated. And a lot of people don't talk about what I'm talking about, and that's why I wanted to share them with you here today. Now, the beauty of these 3 gems is that there is no formal education needed. You do not need to go to college to do these jobs. You only need some experience and some ambition. The trades industry needs good people who are driven and are good at what they do. And if that's you, you have zero reason why you cannot go extremely far in the trades as not only an employee, but also pick up the skills and maybe see a hole in the market that may need a business service that you can provide. Or maybe you want to become a general contractor yourself. The opportunities are endless when you work in the trades, because there's so many different paths you can go down within the trades in the construction world. It's a bit overwhelming, to tell you the truth. But the main thing is really just to get started and take action. In my opinion, learning in the field and getting paid to learn is far superior than paying some college a crazy amount of money to learn a skill set that may get you a good job in the future. This is one thing that I think a lot of the Generation Z and some of these younger guys in the world, they seem to overlook this. But the trades opportunities is huge. Now, when I say trade opportunities are huge, man, they are huge, okay? And I'm going to tell you guys a story about somebody who's done exactly that. And who I'm talking about is Diane and Ken Hendricks. Diane and Ken Hendricks were a husband and wife. They lived, I think, in Wisconsin area. And back in the 70s, they had started a small mom and pop roofing company. They were also, I think, property investors. I think they flipped some houses, stuff like that. They were working in the trades, you see. They were doing some small remodeling, buying houses and trying to sell them. Also roofing up in Wisconsin, I'm sure, was a very short window season because of the weather. So they were struggling as a small contractor, but learning in the trades as they went along. Well, after a few years, they saw a hole in the market where they needed roofing supplies, siding, windows, things like that. I'm assuming that in Wisconsin, there wasn't a lot of suppliers at the time, or maybe in their area. So they went into the market and started a business of selling roofing supplies, siding, windows, primarily things that go on the exterior shell of a structure, but they were in the construction material business. And the name of that company was ABC Supply, American Builders and Contractors Supply Company. Now, I can tell you one thing for sure, is that any roofer out here today and age, every one of them has heard of an ABC Supply. ABC Supply grew to become a large provider across the USA for roofing, siding, and windows. I have personally visited ABC Supplies and order from them myself in my current business today. Now, because of their wise choice in seeing a hole in the market and working in trades already, that opened up the opportunity to start ABC Supply, Diane is now, I think, the largest or highest net worth construction-related individual with a net worth, I believe, of around $22 billion, with a B, billion dollars. Now, her husband, Ken, I believe he died in 2007. I think it was an accident. I'm not really sure. Very sad. But because he died, him and Diane started it together. So it wasn't like she just inherited. She was already in the business as well. It's just unfortunate that Ken had passed away, and she was the remaining person to own and operate the company. Just think about that. $22 billion because they were working in trades as flipping houses, had a small startup roofing company, saw a need for roofing materials within their own business that I guess they had a hard time receiving material or something like that, and decided to pursue starting a business as being a roofing supplier. In my opinion, that is just awesome. What other industry can you possibly do that? So pursuing these three gems, these three jobs that I told you about, yeah, you're going to work as an employee, but it's going to introduce you to construction and get paid very well to do it. And then from there, it can open up a whole wealth of opportunity for you moving forward as a business owner, entrepreneur, or just stay as a very well-paid employee who does their trade job extremely well. So if you're considering going into trades or looking at maybe a career change or looking for an opportunity that can pay you very well without having to pay a school a large amount of money, well, then you need to consider going into the trades and look at these three opportunities that I just mentioned, because these are three jobs that are hidden. A lot of people don't know about them, and they don't require any kind of formal education, only job, training, paid experience. I think you're going to be surprised to see just how much opportunity exists within the trades. It is endless. I can't stress that enough. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Leave me a comment below. Let me know about any trade jobs you've considered, maybe you work for, and shed some light on what being a trade professional actually is. Or if you have questions about becoming a trade professional, shoot me a question. I will answer. That's all I got now, so I will see all of you guys next time.